First, questions about the efficacy of China's vaccines. The Wall Street Journal on November the 25th published the story, China drug makers face pressure to prove that COVID-19 vaccines work. The company haven't released results of late-stage trials, while data from Western drug makers show 3 candidates to be highly promising. Well, the juxtaposition here is pretty clear. Western drug makers have highly promising results, but Chinese companies haven't released results for presumably fishy reasons. The article itself pointed out a few reasons why, such as Chinese vaccine developers have had to go abroad to conduct clinical trials because COVID-19 has been mostly under control within China for months. Their Western rivals are running clinical trials abroad too, although they've recruited tens of thousands of volunteers in the US and UK, where COVID-19 has hit hard. Chinese researchers have been shut out from such places amid rising tensions between Beijing and the West. So it's a misleading way of framing the story. Chinese drug companies will release the results when they are ready, but they are following due process, and that takes time. Rest assured, Chinese researchers want the data just as much as anyone else, but as the article quotes a Sinovac spokesperson saying, the timeline for releasing information depends on scientific process, not human willingness. Nevertheless, questions surrounding the efficacy of China's vaccine candidates abound in the media. When it comes to Western vaccines, the stories look more like these. When it's a vaccine developed in the West, it's about efficacy and saving lives. But when it comes to Chinese vaccines, it's about safety concerns and risks. The basic facts, as I pointed out, are clear. China is among the earliest countries to carry out research on vaccines and has been sharing data with the rest of the world since the outbreak. Now, China has 5 vaccine candidates which have entered phase 3 trials. The vaccine progress made by Western companies is on the same level as Chinese companies. But when they create the impression, these media reports create the impression that there are safety concerns surrounding Chinese vaccines, no scientific evidence is provided. In a New York Times article entitled, Vaccine Unproven, No Problem in China, where people scramble for shots. It says China has made its unproven candidates widely available, and I quote, those users could be taking big risks. People who have taken ineffective vaccines might believe they are safe and engage in risky behavior. In a few cases in the past, unproven vaccines have caused health risks. However, this argument is not a scientific one, is it? The article lists no statistics or credible sources that could prove, with credible amount of doubt, that those safety concerns are valid, if, in their own minds, a few cases in the past do the trick. Given people's lives are at risk, it is never wrong to be prudent. The other major narrative, as I mentioned, is that China's using its vaccines as leverage to extract favors and cut deals with other countries. For example, The Guardian avoided all subtlety in its November 29th headline, China hopes vaccine diplomacy will restore its image and boost its influence. Trading allies such as Brazil are at the head of the queue for Beijing's huge drug distribution program. The article says China has promised Brazil 6 million doses of Sinovac vaccine by January, and that the shipments to Brazil are part of a campaign of vaccine diplomacy that Beijing has mounted around the world. The fallout from the spread of COVID-19 has fueled mistrust of China internationally and damaged the global appetite for the exports, which helped to drive its growth. I'm sorry to announce, the argument used to support this point is not correct. It says the global appetite for China's export have been damaged, but I'm sorry, Chinese exports actually grew at the fastest pace in 19 months in October, rising 11.4%. So China doesn't particularly need to lure other countries with a vaccine in order to sell products. And the idea of Beijing mounting a vaccine diplomacy campaign around the world is perplexing. Yes, China is working with countries around the world to develop a vaccine which can save lives. Yes, China has commodities that other countries might need, but this is also called doing business, which, by the way, can also save lives. But would it be better if China kept all its vaccines for itself? Imagine the bad-mouthing, the press coverage, if that were the case. Again, this damned if you do, damned if you don't, right? And it's a theme echoed across many media. I'm sorry to say that. Remember, there are also dozens of other vaccines in developing process. So why have China's vaccines been singled out and branded as a diplomatic tool? But the whole narrative sounds very familiar, doesn't it? Do you remember the mass diplomacy or money diplomacy? Every country promotes themselves and tries to win friends while interacting with others. But when it comes to China, there must be something fishy and hidden. I think this is a combination of a sour grape mentality dressed with ideological obsessions with a slight racist undertone. China can be better than us. It's not a democracy. How can the Chinese win the vaccine race? But on all 3 points, China seemed to be doing just fine. I don't want to doubt the intention of the journalist or the editor, but the aim of such pieces seems to be bad-mouthing Chinese ideas and achievements so their Western competitors can keep their sense of superiority. They certainly manage to make Chinese intentions and products look suspicious. So next time, if the media want to wave some other funny hats for China, this or that diplomacy, I won't be surprised. My only wish would be make it a bit more original. That would make my headline buster a bit more energizing. I want to point out, however, that there are exceptions. It's not doom and gloom. Not all media are harping on the same strings, for God's sake. Some present more neutral coverage, like this article from the BBC from November the 18th. Its headline reads, COVID-19 Chinese vaccine successful in mid-stage trials. The article delivers a fair and accurate report, void of the speculation so prominent in others. For example, it says, according to the researchers, the Sinovac biotech vaccine led to a quick immune response during trials with around 700 people. The article also explores how China's vaccine progress compared to other candidates when it says 3 vaccines developed in the US, Germany and Russia have all released data suggesting efficiency of more than 90% after trials with tens of thousands of people. The article makes the point that just because China hasn't released the efficacy number, it doesn't mean it's behind. The article says researchers behind all three of those vaccines have released data for more advanced testing stages than the Chinese vaccine, but Sinovac Biotech is conducting these same late-stage trials as well. And the fact that there is no data released on those trials does not necessarily mean that the other researchers are ahead. I think the coverage is more fair. So, it's natural for people to have questions and concerns about new vaccines. These are scary times. But these questions and concerns aren't unique to China. Besides, this contagious virus has proven just how connected the world really is, which means cooperation, not demonization, is the path forward.